Hey you guys, so today we're gonna be watching an interesting video off of Mr. Baller's page. But I moved to Ohio last year. I decided to make the change, relocate. Things weren't working for me in Maryland like I wanted it to. So I was like, you know what, F it. I've been thinking about moving anyway. Let me just go ahead and make the leap and stop being scared. Because the only thing that holds you back is your own fear of the unknown. And so, boom, fast forward almost a year. I haven't been here a year yet, but almost a year, and I love it. Like, I love the area that I'm in. I like the fact that I can go to certain places and I don't see what I saw at Baltimore. Now, that's because I'm not a local. And people say that, like people that I talk to say that, be like, no, we got the hood, like we got shit. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I do believe that everywhere you go, there are going to be good and bads. But my thing is how they govern, how they're governing the place. And like politics right now, politics is not good. The people that is in office are not great. And eventually I'm hoping that we can change some stuff. But one of the plus that I do like about Ohio, they do have high taxes. But coming from a place like Baltimore, Maryland, they had taxes too. And they would take taxes from your check or just funding that they would get. And it all went to the politician pockets. You could never see where your money was going to. I've only been here a couple of months, less than a year, and I see what my tax money is going to. Um, I'm not big into politics, but my biggest thing is the people that we elect are supposed to be the people who are going to build the communities, and we are the one who keeps our communities. But that's another video for another day. But enough of that. Now let's get into this video. Oh, Mr. Bali. Okay. I like his channel.
In 1976, Mary Gillespie lived in Circleville, Ohio with her husband, Ron Gillespie. And Mary was a bus driver for the local school. And one day she came home from work and she found a letter that was addressed specifically to Mary. It had no return address and it was postmarked from Columbus, Ohio. The letter effectively said,
"We know you're having an affair with the superintendent of the school. You must stop and come clean and tell your husband. If you don't, bad things are going to happen to you. We're watching your house. We know you have children."
Now, Mary was obviously frightened. She was scared for her kids. She was scared for herself. She didn't really know how to react.
Got a letter like, who else would know other than his wife or him? If I'm getting letters like these telling me that they know that was sleeping with the person that I was sleeping with or having an affair with, I'm going to the police. This is blackmail.
React to this letter, so she just ignored it and hoped that it was a hoax and that it would just stop. But a week goes by and she gets another letter. This letter was even more.
So she didn't do anything. What a stupid woman. Why? I just feel like she knew who it was, knew why it was coming to her, that she didn't press it to take it to the police. That's strange.
Threatening, saying that
"If you don't stop this now, we are going to harm you. This is not a joke."
Mary decided to ignore that letter too. But literally the next day, her husband Ron woke up one morning and got the mail and found a letter addressed to him. The letter had no return address and was postmarked from Columbus, Ohio, just like the first two letters sent to Mary. The letter to Ron said that his wife was having an affair with the superintendent of the school and that if he didn't confront her and get her to admit the truth and get it to stop, that Ron's life would be in
grave danger.
Ron is horrified to read.
Now the husband gets in the same team. Like, she definitely cheated with the guy. Now the question is, who knew about it other than her and the guy? That would have been my first thing is, this motherfucker, are you trying to blackmail me right now? Okay. But at least in the letter it said come clean. You understand what I'm saying? So it was giving her a chance to come clean and I guess stop the affair.
This letter, he hadn't suspected anything of his wife. This was very uncharacteristic. And so he went to Mary and he said, hey, I got this letter. What is this? I've gotten 2 of these letters and I've just been ignoring it. I didn't know what to do. And she aggressively denied any accusation that she was having an affair. She said, I'm not doing any of that. And so Ron believes his wife and says, you know what? I don't know what this is, but I believe you. Let's ignore
He believed
this.
his wife
This
because he
will go
didn't want
away.
no
I don't know
wahala.
what this is, but
Okay.
it'll go away. A week later, Ron receives another letter addressed to him, no return address, postmarked from Columbus, Ohio. This letter said,
Ron, it's been a week and you haven't done anything. You have to get her to admit the truth. Otherwise, not only are we going to put your life in danger, we're also going to broadcast what she's doing all over town on billboards, on radio, and on TV.
So at this point, Ron and Mary are scared. Ron is still standing behind his wife. He believes his wife that she has not had an affair, that this is just some horrible hoax, but they're scared. But they don't really want to go to police yet. They kind of want this to just go away. So their first step is, let's tell some people in our inner circle just to kind of put this out there and see what other people think. And so the 3 people that were closest to Ron and Mary were Ron's sister, Ron's sister's husband, named Paul Freshour, and Paul's sister. So it's a little confusing. Those are the players here. And so while Mary and Ron are telling, their inner circle about this anonymous set of letters they've gotten and all the threats involved, Mary starts to think that she might know who's been sending the letters. She has an idea of who it is. Now, we unfortunately don't know who this person is. It's been left out of anything I can find online, but she decides that it's in their best interest to proactively send this person a letter and basically say, you got to stop, or we're going to pursue legal action. And initially, when they started sending the letters, while it's unclear if they got any sort of response from this person, the letters, the anonymous letters, did stop.
Right there. When he said that the wife knew, she is the reason for all of this going on. Because if she wouldn't have had the infidelity out of her marriage, they wouldn't have been receiving anonymous letters. But not once went to the police. Y'all hear me? Not once did she go to the police.
That would all change in August of 1977 when Ron was home one night with the kids, Mary was out, and Ron receives a phone call. He picks up the phone call and his kids would say that his entire demeanor changed. He went from calm and collected to angry, furious. He's talking to someone and it's unclear what was said. We don't know exactly
nobody's
what
not
was said
leaving
or
no
who
names.
he was talking to, but when he hung up, he tells his kids that I'm going to go confront the person who's been writing these letters. And so Ron grabs his pistol, gets in his pickup truck, and blazes off down the road. It's like he knew exactly where he needed to go. But literally minutes later, it was discovered that Ron had died. He crashed into a tree, and he died on impact. Now, nobody else was found at the scene. I mean, the sheriff and the police unit that went in to investigate, it was just Ron in a ditch against a tree. But they found that he had fired 1 shot out of his pistol. They don't know who he was shooting at or what he was shooting at, but he fired a shot before he crashed. The sheriff initially suspected foul play, but the sheriff changes his mind. He says, you know what? Ron was drunk. Ron was 1.5 times over the legal limit. So he was drunk driving and he crashed. But that didn't make any sense because Ron's family said Ron does not drink. And his kids said he hadn't had anything to drink that day. So at this point, the story starts getting very bizarre. After Ron's death, hundreds of other letters, anonymous letters, no return address, postmarked from Columbus, Ohio, are sent to residents all over Central Ohio, not just Circleville, but all over Central Ohio. And the letters took a turn. Instead of being accusatory of Mary, although there was still some of that, it was the sheriff in Circleville is covering something up. And it was around this time that people started to speculate that perhaps the writer's agenda is not as clear. Initially, it seemed like they were targeting, Mary and Ron. They're defending Ron. So following Ron's death, I mean, Mary is scared for her life. She just watched her husband die as a result of this horrible situation. And all these letters are pouring in all over central Ohio with the same kind of nasty language about her and her supposed affair with the superintendent of the school. The letters are insinuating that the sheriff is covering something up with her husband's death. I mean, her kind of dirty laundry is being aired out by this anonymous writer all over central Ohio. And this goes on for years. And so finally in 1983, Mary is at a breaking point and she finally admits that she was having an affair with the superintendent of the school. Now, she claims that it happened, or it started, after the first letters arrived, that it was just a crazy coincidence, but whether or not that's true, it's kind of secondary. And she thought that
Well, we know that's not true. The affair started after the first letter. That doesn't make sense. So you mean to tell me you got that letter and then it made you decide to go and sleep with the superintendent?
would stop the letters. That the first thing that this person wanted was for her to admit this and stop this affair. So she comes out and she admits it and she puts an end to it, thinking that's going to do it. But that didn't do anything. It actually made it worse. So in 1983, after she admits what was going on with her and the superintendent, she's on her bus route driving, the kids to school, and she starts noticing these billboards and signs all over her route, condemning her for her actions and saying she's this horrible person. And so she got mad. She went from being kind of a victim and scared to being mad. And so one day, in 1983, she pulls over when she sees one of these signs, and she gets out, she rips it out, and then when she puts it down, she notices there's a box that's a part of this kind of billboard contraption. And she kind of looks inside, and there is a loaded gun that has a wire wrapped around the trigger, and the slack's been pulled out of it. Like it's literally ready to fire.
First of all, the person knew her route, knew her routine. The person was trying to kill you. It just don't make no sense, Mary.
And had she been standing at a slightly different angle when she pulled down the sign, it would have fired the gun and it would have shot her. So she calls police, police show up, they do an investigation, and they look at the weapon, and they can tell that someone very poorly tried to etch off the serial numbers on the weapon so that it couldn't be traceable. But they were able to lift the serial number, and they were able to trace it back to its original owner, who was none other than Paul Freshour. And so the police go to Paul and they're like, "Is this your pistol?" And Paul was totally cooperative when he was approached. He's like, "Yes, I didn't report it, but that gun was stolen from me. I didn't set up that booby trap." The sheriff, who was the same one who investigated Ron's death, he didn't buy it. And so they made him submit to a handwriting test. It apparently totally swayed the jury. They were like, "You know what? Paul's the guy." And he was found guilty and sentenced to 7 to 24 years in jail. And so Paul goes to jail. And while he's in solitary confinement, more letters are sent out all over central Ohio. And they're all being postmarked out of Columbus, Ohio, even though he is in solitary confinement in Lima, Ohio. But no one wanted to listen to that. Everybody believed that Paul was the guy. Even though he's like, how could I have been writing these letters?
Exactly.
And so for 7 years, these letters are sent all over central Ohio, accusing the sheriff of this cover-up and condemning Mary for what she did. And then when Paul is up for parole, after 7 years, he stands before the parole board and they deny him parole on the grounds that he was sending these letters. Even though he's like, how could I have been? I've been in solitary confinement most of the time. But they were like, too bad, you wrote the letters, see ya. And so he goes back to jail. And it was at this point that Paul he gets a letter. This letter was taunting Paul because they apparently had known that he was denied parole based on him being the writer. And instead of it being written in the first person, like I, it was written we. We are keeping you in jail for as long as we can. Basically saying, haha, we know you didn't do it. but we are going to keep you in jail for as long as we can. And they even said,
that booby trap is not the only one. It's only a matter of time before somebody else finds one, and then you're going to get blamed for that too.
But following that letter, the letters stop. And so for 3 years, Paul remains in jail until he's up for parole again. And since there haven't been any more letters and no one found any more booby traps, Paul's granted parole. Paul would maintain his innocence all the way until 2012 when he passed away. So in 1993, which was the same year that Paul was released from prison, the very popular TV show Unsolved Mysteries decides to cover this story. As soon as they are beginning to do research on it, they receive a letter from an anonymous person with no return address, postmarked from Columbus, Ohio, written in the same style handwriting as the Circleville writer. It said,
if you come to Ohio, you El Sickos will pay.
And so the staff and crew of this show had a decision to make. You know, is this a credible threat or not? Do we actually pursue this or not? And they ultimately decided.
I don't know. I mean, if anybody could tell me, but why did they have to put El Sickos? Please put it down in the comments.
Decided that they had to do it now. And so they go into Ohio and they do their own research and they start questioning people that were involved in this case. And they come across a crucial piece of evidence that more than likely could have potentially kept Paul from going to jail. They discovered that there was another witness that was never brought forward, despite she made herself available. She was not used in the trial and was basically cast aside, but she was also she was a bus driver, and she was on the same route as Mary. And before Mary went to that booby trap sign and ripped it down and almost was shot, this bus driver was ahead of Mary. And when she passed by, she saw there was a yellow, flashy El Camino sports car parked near the sign, and standing outside of the car near the sign was a man who did not match the description of Paul Freshour at all. And when she was interviewed by Unsolved Mysteries in 1993, they were like, really? The sheriff? Like, nobody wanted to talk to you about this? And she's like, yeah, I told them that I'm available and no one wanted to talk to me about it. So Unsolved.
That's raise a red flag when it comes to people who are willing to talk. It's like a lot of them get overlooked in certain cases, but hopefully it gets better, man.
Mysteries, they air the episode and nothing comes of it. They don't get any more threats. There's nothing. It just gets aired. It's very interesting, and that's that. Really, at this point, you're left with a collection of people, the police included, that fundamentally believe that there is no mystery. It was Paul Freshour. He's the guy that wrote these letters, that set up the booby traps. He went to jail for it, and that's that. But there's another group of people that believe Paul didn't do this, that he went to jail for something he didn't do. And one of those people is a journalist by the name of Martin Yant. And so Martin, along with a large number of people, believe there are 3 additional suspects that should have been looked into, or should be looked into now, that could have been the right.
I think it was multiple people that had something to do with this. And it was all because of Mary. If Mary wouldn't have been cheating, she wouldn't have been getting these letters. The only person I would think of who would have exposed this willingly or not was the superintendent.
Writer. The first one is the superintendent of the school, the one that Mary was accused and then admitted to having an affair with. The second was a co-worker of Mary's that apparently was infatuated with her. And then the third one was Paul Freshour's wife. So they were married when the Circleville writer drama unfolded, but they ultimately divorced. She left him and she ended up getting together with another guy. So she's got a boyfriend, and the boyfriend matches the description of the guy standing next to the El Camino at that sign in 1983. And one of this guy's relatives owned a yellow El Camino. But nobody ever followed up. The police aren't looking into it. Paul Freshour's the guy, and they're not about to reopen this case. For me, the letters that got sent out all over central Ohio while Paul is in, solitary confinement, to me, that is like the #1 thing.
Exactly.
That makes me doubt that Paul was the guy.
Exactly.
Could he have been involved? Certainly. I think that that's definitely possible. But I think that more than likely what we're looking at here is there was more than one writer. Maybe there's a whole group of them, but it's just unclear what their agenda was. And the whole thing is just very confusing. There's lots of people involved, lots of drama. It's like the most epic drama that's unfolded in the most obscure place in the country.
Exactly.
But it is what it is, and it's certainly a fascinating mystery.
So, I would definitely like to hear you guys' thoughts on this mystery. If you're from Central Ohio, Clarksville, correct me if I'm wrong in those comments right there, right there. And also, tell me what you think. Do you think it was the superintendent and his wife? There was a co-worker. You'll make sure you like, subscribe to my channel for more content like this.